Good evening, everyone. It is once again Ted the Speed Learner, and this particular video is going to go out to Triangulum Audio Studios, and that's because we are going to review tonight Star Trek II: The Wrath of Kahn. Now, if you have the DVD or you're watching it on Amazon or Vudu or whatever, go ahead and start watching it, because I'm going to go through this step by step by step, and you can follow along based on what I'm saying. Okay? So, now the first thing is, if you guys will remember from Star Trek the Motion Picture, I got the impression that Dr. McCoy didn't exactly like being a part of Starfleet. Okay? So, after the mission was done in the first Star Trek episode, why did he stay on, and why did he go ahead and become a part of this training thing for the Kobayashi Maru? I'd like to know that. And why, okay, I didn't see this early on. I'm sorry, I'll have to correct that. But I was going to ask why Mr. Spock wasn't a captain of a starship. Why is he in the training simulator with the Kobayashi Maru when he should be commanding a starship? But we get that answer later on, so just ignore that particular question. Alright. Why is Mr. Sulu still a helmsman at this point? Shouldn't he be commanding his own ship at this point? Why is Lieutenant Uhura still a communications officer at this point? Shouldn't she have advanced in rank and gone on to bigger and better things? Alright. And why would Starfleet use pyrotechnics in a training simulator like this? I mean, this was a training exercise. Those kind of pyrotechnics could seriously injure the crew. That's ridiculous. Okay? Oh, and why isn't Mr. Scott still doing engineering work? He should be the head engineer of a starship. Now, we learn later on he becomes the engineer, the head engineer of the Enterprise. Okay? But we're sitting here going, why are you playing around with a training simulator when you actually should be engineering on an actual starship? Okay. And why was more than one trainee being tested in this training simulation? I'd like to know that as well. Okay. Oh, and why hadn't anybody tried Kirk's solution to the Kobayashi Maru before Kirk did? I'd like to know that too. And did anybody ever attempt Kirk's solution again? That's never mentioned. And why was Mr. Spock actually chosen to be the captain of the Enterprise? I mean, what, was he the only applicant or something? And where did Dr. McCoy find those glasses? Alright. And no one noticed the SETI Alpha 6 was missing? Really? Oh, and Mr. Chekhov, he sees the cargo carriers, and he's not given a slightest bit of deja vu or anything like that. It doesn't like, no, these kind of look familiar. I mean, he obviously had seen them before, so it's like, okay, and I'll get into that in just a second, alright? I know exactly where you're going with this, but I will get into that in just a second. But, bear with me, if Mr. Chekhov had seen these cargo carriers before, why didn't he, like, you know, these things look kind of familiar? Nothing of that magnitude. He never says anything like that. Okay. And why didn't Khan specifically state how he remembered Chekhov? That would have resolved a lot of that in the movie. It really would have. Because we already know that according to Space Seed, we never really see Chekhov in the episode of Space Seed, but that doesn't necessarily mean he wasn't there. Khan should have been more specific in saying, hey, I remember what you did to me, da-da-da-da-da-da, and then we could have, the whole debate would have been over in 3 seconds. Okay, so that's why I wanted to get into that. Okay, and Mr. Chekhov, when he first went into the cargo carriers, he didn't recognize one single thing until he saw the books and the belt buckle with the Botany Bay. He didn't recognize anything else in there? Really? Okay. Now, the captain of the Reliant and the first officer, Mr. Chekhov, went down together to examine what they thought was SETI Alpha 6. Since when did the captain and the first officer, without any escort whatsoever, go down on a away mission like that? One or the other would have stayed on the bridge. Okay, the crew of the Reliant didn't contact Starfleet at all during this whole episode. Or they didn't send another away team to find out why their first away team suddenly disappeared? Really? Alright, Admiral Kirk never told Starfleet about Kahn at all, ever, nothing. And Captain Terrell was never briefed about Kahn. I mean, he was at basically the same area. They probably should have told him, hey, look, avoid SETI Alpha 5 because you might find Kahn. Okay. Maybe that it never crossed his mind. It never crossed Captain Terrell's mind that he might be on SETI Alpha 5 facing Kahn. That never occurred to him. Okay. How did the creatures kill so many of Kahn's crew? Didn't Kahn have enough intelligence to keep them from dying? Really? I mean, we're talking a super being. He should have been able to have kept them from dying. And this becomes very important later on in the film. Alright, now, Kahn goes in, he gets the creatures out of the cage, but he doesn't close the cage back up? Really? That creature might have escaped. Who knows? Oh, and the Enterprise didn't have a helmsman trainee? Why didn't Savick expect Kirk to be the way he was? I mean, it wasn't like that wasn't the first time they met. I mean, they didn't meet on the elevator. They had already met in the training room with the Kobayashi Maru. Really? She should have expected it to be exactly that way. Alright. Dr. McCoy asked Kirk about the rest of the inspection. Kirk whispers something, but I don't know what he whispered. I tried to turn the closed captioning on, but I couldn't do it. I don't know what the heck's wrong with my TV. Okay. Now, why would it take 3 days for the Reliant to reach Regula 1? Now, this becomes very important later on. Alright? Lieutenant Savick stopped the elevator with her commanding officer inside of it. Really? Why did Kirk allow Savick to ask him about the Kobayashi Maru or anything else for that matter? Really? Alright. And Starfleet obviously learned nothing from V'ger. Only one starship available again? I mean, gosh, this was what happened the last time. But it gets better. Now, Kirk went to warp speed, and Kahn actually beat Kirk to Regula 1. How's that possible? I mean, Kahn didn't know that Kirk was coming. He would have just kept going slowly. Alright. Now, if the defense fields are energized, the defense fields, they were energized, why didn't Kirk just raise the shields right away? If their chamber coil was overloading their comm system, how are they sending a voice message? That didn't ting-tong in their heads? If their coil emissions are normal, why didn't Kirk immediately raise the shields? When Reliant raised their shields, why didn't Kirk perform evasive maneuvers right off the bat and raised his? Okay. And how long does it actually take to raise those shields once they're energized? It shouldn't take more than a couple seconds. Now, Kahn, when he attacks the side of the ship, he had not yet fired the torpedo that actually went through the saucer section. Yet, if you look at the computer the computer image that shows where all the places that have been damaged, you see that the saucer section has been damaged. Kahn didn't hit that part of the ship yet. Okay. Oh, and Kirk couldn't actually see the damage from the computer screen unless, of course, Spock pointed it out. Really? The bridge is on fire, and one of the officers is scanning the bridge equipment. Why? The first order of business would be to get those fires put out. And the smoke from the fire didn't asphyxiate anybody. Really? On the bridge of the Enterprise. Something's wrong with that picture. The Enterprise has no power, yet they have life support, communication, and even transporter power, because Kirk says, I will be happy to transport myself from my ship to the Reliant. Now, if they have no power, how can they do that? Kahn should have been laughing, going, ha 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 ha, look at you, stupid. Okay. Now, why would the Enterprise have the prefix code of the Reliant in their database? I'd like to know that. And Kahn didn't hear Kirk's orders? Really? Why did Mr. Scott bring a wounded crewman to the bridge? He should have taken that guy immediately to sickbay. If Regula is a big rock, why didn't they just test Genesis there? Why did they go to stage 2 there and then try to find somewhere else? They should have just started right off the bat with they could have found an empty hole on another planet somewhere, because they were only experimenting with one single cave. They weren't experimenting the whole planet. They could have grown Genesis in a cave on a healthy planet, and then anyway. Why are rats running around a space station? I'd like to know that one. When Dr. McCoy discovered the bodies, why didn't anyone call the Enterprise and say, Uhura, we're A-OK, you don't have to call us anymore. Hey, we're fine. Okay? Because they would have known how fine they were as they were trying to take those bodies down. Alright. And how could Kirk know what Kahn blamed him for? And Kirk didn't notice the risk communicators at all. He didn't ask about either one of their risk communicators. I would have loved to have known that. Oh, and Dr. McCoy isn't working on Chekhov? Really? Okay. And Kahn honestly didn't think that Starfleet would rescue Kirk in time? Really? And doesn't Chekhov need food? I mean, David is standing there complaining about the food, and we're sitting here going, Chekhov wouldn't need food. He's just been through a traumatic experience. And why doesn't Kahn think three-dimensionally? I mean, my gosh, the Botany Bay went up into the air. Think about that. He has flown in space. He was part of Space Seed. Why wouldn't Kahn be thinking three-dimensionally? Okay. And how could now remember, Kahn fired on the torpedo bay. How does that affect the main power? How does that affect anything? I'd like to know that. Alright, now I honestly thought that these creatures, once they came out of your body, you were finished. How in the heck did they revive Chekhov? I'd like to know that. Okay. How would Kirk know the precise moment that Kahn flew past him in the Mutara Nebula? He can't see anything. How would he know? And the Genesis device has no override at all. Really? And the fire on the Reliant Bridge, is it spreading all over the place? Give me a break. And Kahn actually knows how to operate the Genesis device. I mean, obviously the data wasn't in the Reliant computers. It certainly wasn't given to him by Kirk. How would he know how to operate the device? Would he just guess? Okay. Oh, and Spock made it to engineering in less than 4 minutes, even though the elevators did not work past C deck. How is that possible? If the Genesis explosion is that powerful, wouldn't the test planet just simply blow into bits? Really? Okay. Oh, and Spock can actually still see after all that radiation fixing he did. Remember that great big light that was shining in his eyes? Yet he can still see. How is that possible? I mean, he had diminished vision according to this story, but I would think he'd be instantly blinded and he would never be able to see again. Alrighty. Well, Triangulum Studios, I thank you for watching all this. I know you probably know by now I've been running a live stream. That's why I'm kind of in this angle. But if you can answer any and all these questions, leave them down here in the comments below. If anybody else would like to take a shot at answering any of these questions, I'd like for you to leave the comments down here below. And one of these days, I'll go ahead and review all the rest of these Star Trek movies and let you guys know what I think. And thank you for tuning in. I will tell you more in a future video, so I'd like for you to stay tuned.